Hello, I'm Anthony. I am a budding dungeon master. I'm doing my best. If you've been following my videos, you know that I am not great at this yet. I'm gonna be with your help. Hopefully, I don't know. I don't know how any of this works. I'm trying to learn, and that's why we're here. So if you want to help me, or if you just want to laugh at me as I'm failing and fumbling along the way, please subscribe to the channel and like comment below and let me know and stuff. So I'm here today to recap session 2 of this new campaign that I'm running. I've never done this before. This is my first ever attempt at running a campaign, and we are on session 2. The heroes have made their way into this dungeon, and there are these four puzzles, or four rooms that they know they're going to have to go through in order to find something within each room to facilitate the path to the greater treasury below. They know this. So I made a previous video explaining exactly how I was hoping these puzzles would go. If you want to check that out, you can like find it on my channel and stuff. Guys, it went pretty well. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I was pleasantly surprised. So the first thing they did was they were like, okay, we want to go toward House Cornelius, which is to the north. So they start walking toward, in the direction of this large, large door. Of course, I'm just like, there are a lot of doors in this because I'm not great at this yet. I'm gonna be, but so far, lots of doors. You're gonna see a lot of doors. So they open this door. When they go in, there's this this painted room and all this stuff, and they see these torches. And I was terrified that they weren't going to figure this one out and that I was going to have to do something. But the puzzle was essentially there were clues around the room that would suggest that they'd put the torches out or all close their eyes in order for the wall to fall forward and reveal the next room that they were going to enter. It took them a while. There were some like a lot of failed skill checks. They tried to make more light for some reason. So there was a clue that was basically saying like the darkness is your ally. It was very Bane. The clue was saying you're all the light that you need. I tried to add these clues to get them to shut the dang lights off so then more lights could happen. They weren't getting it for a minute. Then they finally, something clicked in one of the players, and they're like, wait a second, gotta put these torches out. And instead of putting them out, like, blowing them out, shaking them out, putting them on the ground, anything like that, it was my friend who plays a half orc, Stephanus, and he tried to take his hammer and do like a fun swing and, like put them all out with the air, which is super cool. I was like, I love this. But I was like, all right, like roll for it. Let's see how this works. But he rolled like a 2, and I was like, oh, like, this isn't great. But while my one friend was failing, the Tortle cleric player, hunter, he used his ability to just extinguish all of the torches in sight, and it made the half orc feel as if he was successful, even though he wasn't. So it was really funny, and everyone got to enjoy that moment together. But they did it. They solved that part. They headed into the next room. In hindsight, I should have had the door, the wall fall, them enter a room, and then the wall just raise back up. And then they'd have to find a way to escape. What I did was I was like, oh, okay, well, I like the imagery of them walking across this path. It seemed to look like a ladder when it was vertical, but then when it was on the floor, it was a bridge. So it's again, I like that, and the stars were all light, and there was fun imagery, but I was like, I don't know, there's just another door in front of you, so I feel like I gotta get better at this. It was fine. No one's complaining about the number of doors in this yet. They will. It's got like eventually it's gonna be like 3 campaigns later. It's just gonna be like the big bad's gonna be a door, and it's not gonna be adorable. Shut up, stop. I'm trying. So as they enter this room, the walls, the floor, the ceiling, everything looks to be made of like canvas, similar to, what an artist would paint on. And in the center of the room, there are a bunch of paints and turpentine and all this stuff. And I describe it to them. And one of the characters, or one of the players takes a brush, and suddenly the room becomes awash, with paints. And before they know it, they're in a painted forest, and everything is made of paint. Everything, is beautifully rendered, but you can tell that it's paint. But it does have a new depth to it, so they can explore the surroundings and such. And I was like, oh, this will be fun. They can either like fight whatever comes, or use paintbrushes to create things, or use a turpentine. They have like options, but they also see a treasure chest. I was like, okay, I'm gonna like show them that chest right away. I'm gonna like reveal the chest. They see this chest and they start making their way toward it. And of course, with perception checks and such, they're hearing like skittering and shaking in the trees and all this stuff. And suddenly it occurred to me that I didn't plan like what specific creature I was going to put in this forest. I was like, I knew I wanted it to be like little things. I didn't want it to be something that was like, oh, it's gonna destroy their game. It's gonna be a huge battle. I wanted it to be like a fun, small fight, but I didn't want it to be goblins again or like kobolds. And I was like, what do I do? So I had the idea that there were just these tiny trolls, right? Like you'd imagine if they were massive, they would be terrifying, but like when they're like this big, they're not really scary, especially to a party of adventurers. So you see like these, like seven trolls and they're all jumping forward. And one of my friends like attacks them and just annihilates one of them. And like you see like he splashes into paint, half of his body is left, and he's like kind of, just like bifurcated vertically, Um, and he's falls. So this like miniature troll falls on the ground and he gets mad and he jumps onto his friend and the paints fuse together. So now you have like this Goro, like still small but like larger troll situation with a little head in the center. It's like becoming a human trollopede, scenario. And so I went with that and I was like, I really like this idea. So they're fighting these things, and it gave the party opportunities to like use their individual traits in ways that they hadn't been able to yet. And I was really excited because my fiance is playing a wood elf sorcerer and she's been really excited to use mage hand and it just hasn't yet, or like hasn't had the opportunity to like really make use of it. So one of my friends realizes there was turpentine in the other room, so my fiance is like, I can use mage hand to get it, and she realizes that it's too far away, so she's like, I run 20 feet and I use mage hand. I was like, okay, yeah, sure. It was just so much fun, like watching them kind of figure out how to use the spells in this situation where like they know they're in danger, but they're trying to be clever with the way they defeat these things instead of just like stomping them all out or whatever. But it was so much fun, and everyone got to enjoy like taking these things out. They all participated in various ways. My friend Tina plays a Dragonborn rogue, and she kind of hid up in this tree, like watching all of the action. And then as these trolls sort of like merged into this like amalgamated form of this larger troll, like this massive 9-foot troll that made of paint that they were going to have to contend with, my friend Tina leapt out of the tree and like hacked at this thing, and I gave her advantage. She was like completely hidden, and it was a lot of fun. And she dealt this like massive blow, and it made her. She was like super excited, but it also it kind of ignited the rest of the party to like jump in. And so while they're all attacking this troll, my fiance brought in turpentine and used Mage Hand to fly overhead and dump it over this troll, and they basically just eviscerated, just annihilated this thing, and it was great. They were like that was a fun battle, and they all seemed to enjoy it. And then all that was left was the chest. In the chest, it's this painted thing. And I was like, okay, they can either like find more turpentine if they can and like dump it over it, or they can try to paint a key. And all of my friends were like, oh my God, let's paint a key. So I had them roll for it. And they all like whoever had the highest roll painted a key and got the chest open. And it was fun. And then they ended up they realized very quickly, they were like, okay, this paint is magic, we can paint a door. So my friend Tina was like, I'm just gonna splash the turpentine and see if I can see where like the initial door was. And she rolled high and like totally did. And then she just drew a doorknob, and I was like, oh yeah, that's enough. To draw a fancy door. So she did, and it was perfect. It was like a fun, creative way to solve the puzzle. So inside of the chest, there's this like crystallized form. It's like a sculpture of that the specific sigil, like the symbol of their houses. So each house has like a specific kind of sign. It's like a sword or some sort of a dagger with like another symbol. So you'd imagine like in each puzzle, the treasure will eventually be this thing, which will act as a key for them to get into a greater vault. And they all know that. It's all been, established in the story. So they head back. They put this piece into the obelisk, and it lights up and everything. Like it starts to rumble, and they can see like, okay, we have to do this 3 more times, and we're going to get the treasure. So they were excited. They were like, okay, we're going to the next puzzle. And I was like, yes, puzzle number 2, let's go. And I was like, all right, which way do you want to go? And they chose House Crispershetta, which is the Dragonborn family. And I wanted this to be like a fun, unique puzzle, and I was nervous about it. If you watch my previous video, like I was a little apprehensive about doing something like this, so I didn't know, but I didn't want to just give up on it because I'm nervous. Like I'm nervous to do all this. That's why we're here. So I was like, okay, we're just gonna go for it. So this is what I did. The entrance to the puzzle room was a mini puzzle itself, where they were faced with this corridor and met with a stone wall in front of them. To the right they saw a mirror, and to the left they saw a portrait. And so my friends eventually discovered that when they looked in the mirror, they saw a corridor leading through the portrait, and there was no portrait. So of course my friends like naturally like put their hands on the portrait. It was just a portrait. They put their hands in the mirror. They couldn't get through the mirror. And eventually, one of my friends realized they could walk backwards through the wall, and she did. And it was so much fun. Then everyone followed her, and so everyone followed her. My fiance like moonwalked back, and I made her give me a performance check because it was fun. She's like, I'm basically Michael Jackson. Like, don't say that. As they made their way through the initial puzzle, I began to describe that they were entering this room that made them feel a certain way, and suddenly everything looked different. And what I did was I described the room that we were in, and I described them sitting in their chairs, and I described that there was a very strange, like nerdy, skinny guy in front of them, who's had this awkward board and like was telling them, what to do. And basically, I described the three of them were stuck in their chairs, and one of them was free to move around the building, around the house, in order to find the key to the chest that was on the center of the table. So with the chest in the center of the table, my friend Tina was free to stand up, and she was amazingly excited. Like she was just like elated, when she was just like, "Are we doing this for real?" And she like jumped up. And so what I did to make this fun for everyone was I hid three real keys around my house in specific locations. I wrote those like hidden locations on three different pieces of paper, and I gave them to the rest of the party. And I had had them turn it over. Tina had no idea what the rest of the party had seen. They didn't know that they had separate locations or whatever. So I told them, they find themselves only able to say the words hot and cold. So as Tina's looking around the house, having no idea where to go, my friends in the party began to say hot. No, cold, cold, hot. And it was and eventually Tina was just like so excited to run around and find these keys. And she found all three. And I was really happy. And then it got to the point where I was like, only one of these keys. I mean, and she knows like only one of these keys is the right key. You're free to try all of them. Like I'm not gonna say what may or may not happen. Bad stuff. It's gonna be bad stuff. I plan bad stuff. I'm trying to murder you. I'm not really trying to murder them, I promise. But I did plan, if they put in the wrong keys, there are gonna be consequences. Things will come out of that. The chest will open, something will come out, and then the chest will lock again. And it's not going to be what you want to come out of the chest. So Tina was, she sat there for a second and she's like, okay, well, do I know which key it is? And I was like, your character definitely knows what key it is. Like, I'll tell you. So I asked her, I was like, as a player, if you don't remember, I'll let you roll for like a history check. I'm not going to be it's going to be like super low DC, because I mean, your character would remember. I just want to know if you remember. And it just like hit her. I could see her like eyes open up. She's like, "Oh my God, the portrait! I saw a portrait, and my ancestor was wearing this sword necklace." And she's like, "It's a sword." And she tried it. And I was like, "Yep." And it was just like the look on her face when she was just like, "I freaking nailed it!" And I was like, "Yes, you did." And I was like, "We nailed it to go doing it, D&D." And I was just like, "We're freaking doing this." So the chest opens up, and I mean, I didn't actually have this thing because I can't afford to. I don't have a 3D printer, and I can't afford to have this kind of stuff made. Maybe I should get some clay. I should have done it in clay. Failure. I'm a failure. Okay, so next time I'm gonna do this in clay. So she finds her sigil, and they make their way back to the obelisk. At which point, I'll tell you, I failed a little bit as a DM because I meant for there to be another interaction with one of the characters, because they had previously on D&D. They captured a kobold and they had him like tied up, and they discovered that there's a little hole in the wall somewhere in the vault that the kobolds have been making their way in here to try to find the greater treasure beneath, but they haven't been smart enough to do it yet. So they have this kobold captured, and I meant for someone to come rescue him, or for him to escape, for there to be another interaction. But I got so wrapped up in just like having fun with everyone, and like how much fun like that mirror puzzle was, that I forgot to mention it. So before I had a chance to say anything, my friend Steven, as Stephanus the half orc, he said, "Oh, by the way, I grabbed that kobold by the obelisk and I throw him over my shoulder like a big shoulder pad." And I didn't want to retcon. I didn't want to be like, "Oh, well, he's not there." Because it was too funny. I was like, "Okay, I'm going to see where this goes. It's fun." And you don't need to have this interaction. I wanted to have these little peppered interactions a little bit. So then when the like big bad reveals himself eventually, it's not as jarring, but I figured it would be okay, and I wasn't too concerned. They understand how this works. It's a fun, fantastical narrative that we're all weaving together, and if it's not gonna be perfect, right? Okay, I failed a little. I'm sorry. I'll do better next time. So my friend Steven puts this kobold, like tied up, webbed kobold over his shoulder. He kind of has him like a backpack almost, like shoulder pad backpack. He described. So we head off to the third puzzle, which was one of my favorite puzzles to come up with. I thought it was a really fun idea. As they enter the like initial puzzle of it, there's a sort of like whack-a-mole scenario where they see these large mounds of stone like rubble with like these like six holes, and this creature pops up. And in hindsight, I should have said whack-a-troll. I should have said whack-a-troll or whack-a-knoll. There are so many. I was just like, it's like a goblin-y, orcish, like weird. I tried to describe a mole goblin is what I was describing, but I failed. I just wanted to get the idea of whack-a-mole, but I should have said whack-a-troll. Why didn't I think of that? They realized what it was. They got through it just fine. It was a lot of fun. No, hang on. They got through it. My friend Steven was very excited to hit this thing. He rolled super high. I'm not sure if it was a nat 20 or a like a dirty 23 or like it was like a high freaking roll. And he slams this thing and I had to like shoot through like cartoonishly like Looney Tunes go down and shoot through one of the other holes and splatter up on the ceiling of the vault because it was just like so like such a massive blow. Anyway, they made their way through there and they entered the larger wild carminium like half orc vault. As they get to this vault, they see that there are three what look to be carnival games. And I imagine, stupidly, very stupidly, that they were going to all kind of stick together and just be like, let's see what this one is. Let's see what this one is. Let's see what this one is. But instead, one of my friends was like, I think you should do this game and you should do this game and you should do this game and like delegating the three games to various players. And the players were just like, yeah, sure. I think accommodating and going to those various places. And I was like, well, this is going to be interesting. So they did. And it terrified me because one of these three games, there was a balloon wall where you throw darts, and it was going to be a mimic. It was going to be a terrifying thing that I was hoping they would recognize as a party was a bad choice. But there was just one player there who was just tempting the fates, as it were, just terrifying me because I was like, I don't want to do this to them right now. But you know, that's sometimes the way the dice roll. To the left, there was this knight. It was one of those like dunk tanks where there are these, you know, like sacks, like some balls that they throw at this big thing or whatever they want to throw at the button. And if they hit the button, a plank will go down, and eventually, with three hits, they'll sink a knight. The idea was going to be that if they sink the knight, a little card was going to pop out that would give them a clue as to how to find the crystallized symbol in this room. I should have done every time they hit the button three times, there would be three different small clues just to kind of lead them to this thing. Because what ended up happening was they didn't even sink the knight while they were there. They missed a couple times. I was like, oh my gosh, I should have like really lowered this DC and maybe I should like fudge it now, but it's been too late. And it wasn't that high. They were just rolling like significantly low, like really low. So eventually they were like, oh, let's avoid the balloon wall because we've heard it growl, and that's not great because I didn't want them to fight this thing yet. I was like, if they do that, they might not fare very well. And I didn't want to do that to them and like, you know, have them fight this whole thing after they just did a big battle. And I felt like it was going to be a little repetitive, just doing battle and battle. And they were having a lot of fun trying to figure out the puzzles and games. So I was like, I was just wanted to follow the fun and keep it, you know, entertaining and light at the moment because I did know that they were going to be faced with something else later. And if I can suggest heavily to them that it's a bad idea to play with these balloons, I will, and I did. So they focused on the night dunk game for a while, and they were trying to figure out the third game, which was a test your strength sort of thing. And you know, there was this large mallet, and there's a button to smash, and you know, a bell at the top, and you have to try to smash the button in order to get the thing, you know, to go up. There were several clues around the room, including the hint that the knight would eventually give them, that would lead them to understand that the test your strength game was a test of your inner strength in one, you know, as if it needed to be someone who is of this bloodline to stand on that platform in order to make the, you know, the button or the light raise and hit the bell. That was how you did it. No amount of like physical strength would be able to do it. So I was hoping I was using the knight as this. I was kind of doing like an almost plankton voice as I was mocking them, and being like, I guess you can't hit me. I'm just, you know, untouchable. No one's, where are you going? Don't leave. You know, I was doing like I was taunting them individually, trying to get them to knock this thing into this knight, you know, or this like suit of armor into this acid, so they can get a hint because they weren't getting it, and I didn't want to give it away. But what ended up happening was hilarious. Like it was freaking. I'm so glad. This is like a perfect D&D moment that I'm like, it made me love this game and love my friends so much. It was so much fun. My friend Steven has the idea. He's like, if a mallet won't do it, and he takes the kobold off of his shoulder that he just strapped on his shoulder, and he says, I want to hit the platform with this kobold like this. But he specified that he didn't want the kobold to get hurt. It's a very important specification because he rolled a nat 20. And I was like, oh my gosh, first of all, his intention is to not hurt this kobold, but he's smashing down on this platform. And if he does hit the kobold on the platform, the kobold's gonna die. His skeleton's gonna come out of his mouth. It's gonna be crazy. It's gonna be like a chest burster from your face, you know? So I was like, that can't happen. So what will happen is he has these large orc fists. He's gonna miss with the kobold and hit with his fist. And because it was his skin and he is of the bloodline of that family, it was enough for it to register his inner strength. And it worked. It hit the bell. It came down. He got the crystallized form. The kobold lived. His nat 20 was successful in the way that he wanted, but also in a way that he didn't realize he was trying to attain. No one actually solved that puzzle. No one understood why it happened. And I was like laughing so much that I forgot to explain it to him. But honestly, I don't have to because they didn't experience it that way. What they experienced was just a fun situation in which like his fists happened to be enough. And maybe they'll figure out why later or I'll explain later. But it was a lot of fun and everyone loved it. And then we were leaving, like we got to leave that place. But as we left the place, my fiance said, "No, wait." I turn around and I shoot an arrow at the knight's button. And she rolled really high and hit it, and he fell in the acid and basically thanked her for letting him, fall in the acid finally. And they left, and they all did the thing where they're like, "Cool guys, don't look at explosions," and like walked off as he like fizzled into acid. But it was so great. So we went to the fourth and final puzzle of the night, which was the den of it was House Hamato, which is the Ninja Turtle reference heavy because I wasn't given much of a backstory. And so I really like that as funny and like as silly and unserious as this backstory with like because it has Ninja Turtle references and all that may be, it still does allow us to kind of explore who this character is and how he responds to this sort of history that he wasn't aware of. So we all got to laugh through this and it was a lot of fun. So the entrance to the fourth puzzle, as they all sort of had mini puzzles that had something to do with their character or like the larger puzzle overall, this one had these sort of vines that were just very reactionary vines. You can see that they responded very much to the amount of force that was put upon them and the way they were interacted with. So if people tried to chop at them, they were violent. If people were kind to them, they were accommodating. And obviously, everyone who's been down here has been pretty violent because I kind of I kind of described that there were, scattered remains and like various things around as if like people have or like creatures have been down here trying to find this treasure. So Hunter the Turtle used this spell to kind of like heal and grow these vines, and as such they covered the corridor in this beautiful path, with flowers and all this such leading to this gorgeous branch doorway. And as they entered it, they saw the turtle den from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So it was basically a sewer with pizza boxes and like fighting mats and weapons and all this stuff. Along the far side of the wall, there was a giant eye and a safe. And when they approached the safe, it just made like the eye basically like looked at them and it was just like red and it made like a nah sound and like it wouldn't allow it and like basically the safe was closed off so no one could touch it. So there were cleric messages around the room suggesting that he has to do something to reveal his entire family one way or another in order to get past this eye. In the center of the room, there were these liquids. They were just like the primary colors, and there were like dozens of cups around on the table. And they discovered that when they drink one of the liquids, they transform into something. So one of my friends drank one of the red liquids and she transformed into Raphael, the Ninja Turtle. And then they made blue and, purple and, orange. And they realized that they all look like the Ninja Turtles, but they walked up to the room, the eye, and I was like, "Ugh, I can't." I was like, I already gave them enough clues previously, and I think it'll be fun if they understand, like they find the missing piece. So it took them a second, but they realized that previously in D&D, they saw in this portrait that there was a rat person, Splinter, obviously, holding this chalice full of green liquid. So they needed to make green in order to make a rat, but they didn't have a rat. There were only four of them. So what are they going to do? So my the cleric looked around and he used some perception checks and stuff. He wanted to find a rat in and among the pizza boxes, and he did. And he offered it some of the green liquid. It ate it, and it became this large humanoid conscious rat creature, and welcomed them into the vault. And it was Splinter, and then it worked. They went to the eye, it opened up the safe, they got their crystallized sigil, and as they left the room, everything returned to normal. And they were able to place the crystal key into the obelisk where it belonged, and the obelisk began to descend into the depths of this vault. So all of the puzzles worked, all of them. Everything worked out perfectly and they made their way into this vault. And they did experience it a little bit, but I'm gonna save that for another video that I'm gonna make in a couple days. I just wanted to like catch you guys up with how those puzzles actually went. In my next video, I'm just gonna do it like two in one. I'm gonna tell you like what I was thinking was going to happen versus what happened because we actually got further than I expected. I thought we were just gonna stop at the puzzles, but my friends wanted to see like what happens when this obelisk goes down, and they were pretty shocked, and it was cool. It was a really good time, and I think it all went really well, and it was a great start to our campaign, and I can't wait to see where this goes. But if you're interested, stay tuned for the next video. I'll release it in the next couple days. Thank you all for watching this. Thank you for being a part of whatever this Dungeon Master Diary is. I really do appreciate all of your support and your tips and all of your help has really benefited this campaign so far. I've been able to like tweak things based on some of your advice, and it really does help. And I don't know. So far, it's going really well. I hope it continues to go well. I'm sure I'm gonna like come across some snags here and there, but we'll see. But anyway, if you want to see any of my other stuff, I am a writer. I write comic books. If you want to read my like D&D inspired comic book, Deathless, you can. We just released issue 3. This is the holofoil cover. Yeah, I write comic books. You can find those at wehaveissuespodcast.com. Otherwise, you can see me, talking every single week at youtube.com/wehaveissuespodcast. And yeah, you can find me on Twitter and all the stuff. I'll post everything below. But yeah, feel free to ask me any questions or like give me any tips or any advice, or if you have any recommendations, or if you just want to suggest some things. If you're like, oh hey, don't forget to do this for this campaign just in case, like please feel free to give me any of those tips because like it all comes in handy and I really do appreciate it. But otherwise, this is the end of the century. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you guys.